because in France, they grow hemp all over the place. Around the world, we're the only country that really ever made hemp illegal, along with what they now termed marijuana, which previously, obviously, it was called cannabis. It would have been found in every single drugstore around the country up until 1937. But we had this crazy idea to make hemp illegal. And so like the greed and the motivation of the prohibition of hemp simultaneously with the prohibition of now.
Join, share. All of our content is available on Patreon, also Patreon.com/Global Hemp Association. And then also on YouTube, podcasts, social media. Next Thursday is our Q&A series. There's a link on our LinkedIn page to join.
And so I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, where I was a tank platoon leader and a scout platoon leader and all that stuff. And then went to Germany. And I served there. I was a cavalry troop commander there. Just had an amazing time. And then I became a foreign area officer, which is like a special type of officer where they train you to focus on particular regions of the world and be a strategic advisor to folks like our ambassadors and things like that. And it was just a phenomenal military career. Along the way, I went to Afghanistan and I was working at a staff level, really advising the ISAF commander at the time. And we came up with this concept to maybe look at hemp to replace the opium crop and create an industry within Afghanistan based around hemp. It was kind of laughed at the time, but I really got interested in the subject. Learning about the roots of our own prohibition in the United States, I found very, very interesting. And I found more than interesting, I found it kind of, disdainful, recognizing that it really started with an attempt to oppress Americans, or people, of entire communities.
Yeah.
And so that for me was really troubling. And then also recognizing really quickly that hemp and cannabis could have military applications to include, creating new materiel and addressing climate change and things of that nature, while also providing the ability for food, fuel, fiber, medicine, building material, all of these other things that we're starting to learn about. I just knew that I had to be a part of this kind of growing industry.
When you first got into this, was it, you said in Afghanistan, you were kind of laughed at with this idea, but what does the transition look like? Because you dove in head first, once you.
Well, I didn't, I really kind of educated myself along the way out of the military. Meaning, for really like the next 6 years within the military, I was researching and reading and watching every single documentary I could get my hands on and talking to people doing it, so that I could learn about hemp and learn about cannabis. Because like I said, hemp was my real first love coming into this conversation, I guess. This part of the journey was really about hemp. And the interest for me, being the grandson of a California cotton farmer, and understanding a little bit about plants and how they work, and thought that this might be a really unique solution. And it just so turns out that I think, my inclination was correct. So when I left Afghanistan, we were serving in Paris at the time. It was pretty cool. I got to be a liaison officer to the French army. And so while I was there, I actually got to see my first hemp crop. So it was cool because in France, they grow hemp all over the place. Around the world, we're the only country that really ever made hemp illegal, along with what they now termed marijuana. which previously, obviously, it was called cannabis. It would have been found in every single drugstore around the country up until 1937. But we had this crazy idea to make hemp illegal. And so like the greed and the motivation of the prohibition of hemp simultaneously with the prohibition of now what we would call marijuana is just, devastating. It was devastating. It landed like a killer blow to the industry because, for some reason, no longer did the most powerful country in the world think that the crop that brought them to the shores of this continent was worth something, right? I mean, it was just, I guess it was really overlooked. It was really overlooked. It was fascinating.
So do you feel like where we've come in from the United States compared to other countries, right? Where do you see, where are we in this growth of the industry?
Oh, I mean, the opportunity is just limitless. Just, it's crazy. I mean, because a country that just values so much industry, we lost the ability to properly cultivate and manufacture with the very crop that, like I said, really brought us to where we were in 1937.
Well, and understanding.
We just lost it all, and the rest of the world did not.
On the research, I mean, I think that's where we really shot ourselves in the foot, right? Our inability to research this plant. I mean, you look at other countries and trying to figure out where to plant a seed or what seed will survive they're way past that. They understand what works for what end product or end use. And a long time ago, military uniforms were made out of hemp, right? And it was court ordered to grow it. You could pay your taxes with hemp. And so where do you see now kind of where we are compared to where we're headed, and what are you really doing? I'm curious what work is really done right now. What's that experience been like?
Well, it's been really rewarding. Really, it's just been really rewarding because I feel like, we've everything I do, everything that I get to be a part of, from my professional side and the company that I run, Harvest 360, and my activist side, where we're continuing to try to change laws in states where medical cannabis isn't even available. And also simultaneously trying to establish kind of the academic core and network within the Midwest specifically, which is really where I'm trying to focus at the moment. I'm calling in from Kansas City, Missouri. So it's actually Platte City, Missouri, which at one point, by the way, was the most productive hemp county in the country. Yeah, it's really fascinating, right here in the middle of the country. So more proof that, this plant was part of how our country was built, right? All the good stuff and all the bad stuff as well, right? Which we really have to own. So, in all of my activities on the professional side and on the activist side and the personal side and the daily side really coincide with trying to navigate what I think is really a paradigm shift here and direct it in a manner that could potentially, address at least some of the societal issues that were created by the prohibition of the plant in the first place. So that's really the big piece. That's what we try to do on a day-to-day basis. This paradigm shift is really, impacts multiple levels. We talk about the, social justice level, and we try to impact that through elevating social equity within the cannabis industry. There are economic levels where, communities are being impacted positively with the establishment of the cannabis industry, right? I mean, we're doing this in Chillicothe, Missouri, a tiny town of 10,000 people, where we're putting in, we're trying to put in the most high-tech laboratory that could be a real example of how to do a business, and this is a cannabis testing laboratory, how to do a business sustainably and to improve a community. That's really a big part of it. Um, there are sustainability aspects of the industry that are starting to come to the fore because of the amount of technology and focus that's being applied to it.
Mhm.
You know,
You
those are things
hear a lot.
it's what makes me very, very proud to be a part of this industry. Sorry, and I just want to say, like, the final thing that we really work hard on is in the area of health and wellness, and trying to bring access first and foremost to the veteran community that I'm a part of, and trying to do it right here in Missouri. So that's kind of like the third prong of activity that I'm working on personally at my company to try to make happen. And so I think we're actually starting to do that, actually establish research opportunities in Missouri.
That's so awesome. So you had mentioned earlier that you originally got into this with hemp. Would you say your passion has shifted more to the medical cannabis side, or
No, not really. I mean, honestly, I think the two are really intertwined. We're really talking about the same plant, and sometimes we're talking around it, and we have to be all goofy about it. What has to happen really is that at the federal government level, there has to be a recognition that this plant needs to be re-legalized and supported in terms of research and academia and small businesses and farmers. I mean, this is a real conversation that farmers are having. They're having to make a decision of whether or not they're going to plant this crop that was always so important to us and still is, and or to continue to kind of erode the earth and do all kinds of things. When they want to plant hemp, they realize that this is part of the future of agriculture, but they don't want to be the ones that are stuck out there burning their entire crop because it popped hot for reasons that were beyond their control or things like that. We really have to promote this. We have to make a recognition that this plant isn't plutonium. This plant could be a savior on a national level and on a global level, really, in a lot of different areas. So I think it's such an important conversation, and I'm really happy to
well, and
share.
I think, well, and let me ask you this, the discussion of carbon comes up a lot, the carbon footprint, right? Are you seeing that more as you're more involved at Capitol Hill and what it does, what hemp's impact is on the carbon footprint? Or
no, I honestly, I look at it at a higher level of, just, I guess, empowering farmers to farm more hemp is my goal, so that we can really dive into those aspects. And I'm really pushing at a local level to show and demonstrate the sustainability aspects of hemp and the carbon sequestration capability of hemp on a number of different levels, both in the planting and the cultivation of the plant, as well as the use of its biomass in terms of hempcrete, and really kind of diving into what does hemp mean for the future sustainability of building our own homes and dwellings.
right.
And energy consumption. And I mean, it's something that really lends itself to, I guess, regionalization due to the ability to kind of focus so many different, elements of the industry in
Sure.
one place with academia, lab testing, agriculture surrounding you, as well as the leadership that is brought to the conversation through the DoD, which I'm really trying to bring into the conversation in a respectful manner, to talk about what this paradigm shift means on a military level as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry for rambling, but I know you have a big audience, so
well, and
we're speaking to America.
I love talking about it. And I think that it's such a broad subject. It's sometimes hard to say, like, well, why should people be listening? What is it about this that really, why should our farmers be growing this crop?
Mhm.
When you're out speaking about it, what are some of the objections you're hearing? And what are some of the things we're constantly repeating, or that you, I guess, really feel our
Mhm.
audience needs to hear? What do our rural farmers need to know?
Well, they need to know that right now it's still really dangerous for them to dive right into it,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And they have the right to fear loss of banking
Everything.
or a lack of access to banking. That's a huge piece of this conversation. They they probably don't know or understand, and I don't even think the industry fully understands the where the farmer is within the whole value chain,
Mhm.
But I think this is the spot on the ground to have the conversation. I'm surrounded by so many incredible agricultural institutions.
Mhm.
We just opened up a lab space in St. Joseph, Missouri, at the Missouri Western State University. They have a Kit Bond Innovation Center up there. So we really want to be a part of the innovation that this industry brings to the table, and any innovation that can empower farmers, and educate our future about what they need to know in entering the hemp industry and the cannabis industry, and about this plant, because the kids are really excited. Our youth recognizes that this is an absolute paradigm shift, and there's opportunities for employment in a field that would previously, you would only be considered a criminal by being a part of it.
And it gives our rural areas an opportunity to keep their kids home. Like,
Yep.
that's what fuels my fire. Is I see
Yeah.
no kids want to be a farmer anymore. It's hard work. They don't get paid good. These young kids are growing up and leaving these little towns
Mhm.
desolate. We have
Oh,
an opportunity to really grow and keep our supply chains back together again.
yeah, absolutely. I'll share a story with you from the town of Chillicothe,
Yep.
in Missouri. Is really cute. I mean, it's such a cool little town. It's like such a microcosm of America. It's a really beautiful place, and they thrive with agriculture all around. And I mean, it's just a really original part of American history. It's the home of sliced bread.
Okay.
So the sliced bread machine was actually invented there. No kidding. And it's on this highway called the Way of the American Genius. It's Highway 36 that runs east and west across Missouri. It's so cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so the Mayor Kelly, when I first spoke to her about bringing elements of the cannabis industry into Chillicothe, the first thing she said to me was, our greatest export from Chillicothe is our children, and that really struck me. And she's like, if you can bring jobs to this town, and you can, increase this town economically and socially and all of that. She's like, I am all for it. And so they've been really supportive of us. Yeah, so that's
I love it. Well, and I think that you hit the nail on the head. It's what struck a chord with me is I'm from or lived in a small town. I'm from a small town, but then just recently I lived in a small town that is heavy on oil and gas and mining. And
Mhm.
of course, they're running dry. They're desolate. They really are struggling right now. And I see this as they're an agricultural town also, or community also. But they're exporting everything, all of their hay and alfalfa right out of our country, right? And so there goes all of our water. And yeah, there's just there's so many opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, the impact that this will have on water consumption and farming, and the use of chemicals in farming, is a direct impact that we really have to look deeply into.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
Um, when we're talking about labs, you had mentioned a couple of times, there's a few different types of labs that I'm aware of, right? When we're testing lab for concentration and potency for different CBD or the cannabinoids or the terpene profiles, compared to what I don't see a lot of are these labs that are looking at fiber length or tensile strength or diameter, or how clean the herd is or size of the shivs. Where do you see, and how involved are you on both of those pieces? Tell me about your lab and the education.
Wow. That's really fascinating that you would ask me that question, because I have no idea where to go with that at all. Not until you asked the question did I realize that that's actually what's tested in many labs. It's so funny because one of the laboratories here in the state of Missouri that won a laboratory license, that was really their background. And that laboratory was supposed to be right here in Platte City, Missouri, where I stand. It's so funny. And so I never really thought about that as a way to empower this industry and kind of focalize it in one place. We are really talking about, in our laboratory testing concept, about the chemistry of the plant, and especially of the flower, of course, right? And so the ability for us to tell the difference, or to ensure that the plant or the product has no mold, mildew, pesticides, heavy metals, residual solvents, things like that, but also with the ability to tell the exact chemical profile, the cannabinoid profile, and the terpene profile, and all of the other phytocannabinoids that bring the therapeutic impact of this plant, right? And really provide specificity to it on that level so that we can empower research especially in Missouri. It's really a key part of the VA proposal that I put forward to use Missouri as a research platform for medical cannabis here in the state.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think this just goes to show right there, when somebody talks about hemp and labs, there are two pieces to our hemp and production line, right? And understanding that those really are, and it's just not something that's heavily discussed on the fiber side or the construction side when we talk about the big value. But if I'm protecting the consumer or looking to protect my buyer, right, the end buyer of any product, they've got to know what quality they're after. And our farmers then growing, when we want to connect the dots to protect our farmers and prevent as much loss or risk, they definitely need to know what they're being paid. If I grow at this size and this
of course, absolutely, yeah. So farmers really want to know, what's the demand and where's it going to be processed, and how does that exchange happen with the processor. And I think there's the same concept that you're talking about that will come into play within that processor. I've long said that processing of this plant at the highest level is, it's absolutely the long pole in the tent of the hemp industry, and being able to do it on multiple levels in multiple ways and create numerous products is what will empower farmers have confidence to start cultivating this plant on a greater level.
Well, and there's two different types of crops, that I want to point out. There's this horticultural and the agriculture, or the row crop, right? One that's going to be sold into an industrial use and one that's consumed. And so when we talk about the type of lab that you're really putting together for our health and wellness to protect our consumers from heavy metals and molds, or understanding exactly the science of the plant, is very different from this other piece. However, obviously very valuable. Look at how much traction we've been able to make in the United States by coming after it through this angle. So we talk about progress and how we bridge this gap to bring it even more mainstream and get it into everything. I say all the time, everything that we see, eat, breathe will be made out of hemp or involves hemp at some facet, right? Who are the divisions or entities that you deal with mostly, and what type of I guess, what do we do, or what do we need to do, either communication or education, to bridge the gap with those entities like the FDA or USDA? So yeah, I'm kind of curious. What does that look like?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question, but one of the main industries that I'm focused on engaging with um,
Yeah.
are the VA and the DoD, right? I really want to bring the attention of such an important and capable institution, that I love and respect and was part of, and was developed by, really, to be a part of the future of hemp, right? To no longer look at this as a joke, or something that is meaningless, because it's incredibly important. I mean, it is truly a paradigm shift that
So,
we're talking about. So the VA is the main group that I focus on communicating to.
but our regulations set on our consumable products come from where? Well, I mean,
Well,
the
they
VA.
come from who knows? I think we are setting a new paradigm here, because it crosses so many government agencies. That's the thing. That's why it's a paradigm shift. We have to understand this at a federal government level and be able to speak about this at a federal government level, because we're talking about a really complex communication system, right? And so it needs action and plans need to be created at the top of that conversation, in order to make things happen. So I usually, I work through, I guess, and with the Veterans Cannabis Project, where I'm still a board advisor and available, and I'm kind of the Midwest representative of the organization. And then I've been working recently with AMVETS, which is one of the big 6 veteran service organizations. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They were founded here in Kansas City after World War II. But they're one of the big 6. You've heard of like the VFW and the American Legion and DAV and all of these groups. It's one of those groups. So, and I was really struck by them and their purpose. They have a program called the HEAL program, which within it, really pushes for access to medical cannabis and really helps push towards medical cannabis research for veterans specifically. And so it was through them that we submitted a proposal to the VA to use Missouri as a platform or pilot project for the VA to really dip their toe in and observe how veterans are responding to cannabis medicinally.
It's so fascinating. The more and more you hear these stories, when I say like, what do our government entities need? And I really feel like it's these stories, these truths, to be able to see with their own eyes, touch, feel, see it, right? And understand that it's making a change. And I think that the more impact or the more opportunity we have for people to get their hands on it and use it, the more impactful the more chance we have, the better fight we have, right? However, the lab piece and some of the regulations are going to save our industry also. I say all the time that people can walk into the store and you buy a can of soup and that can of soup is safe for you. And this industry is not that way yet. Right.
Yes, totally agree. I absolutely agree. I do think that there needs to be, a large conversation about products that are being made from cannabis, and from cannabis in all of its form, in the hemp form and in the food form and the medical form, and one day in the future in the composite form or the plastic form, or in all of the different and cool things that are happening with cannabis and hemp and all of the products that are coming out there. We have to really empower our nation to embrace this industry. That's what I think is important, and that's the conversation that I'm here to be a part of. I hope to be a part of, and it's something that I hope to demonstrate in the actions of my company. It's something that I hope to kind of demonstrate in my actions on a daily basis as an activist, and trying to change laws and educate people and create space for research here in the Midwest.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you said earlier, and you talk about the paradigm shift, I compare this a lot to like a finance or a technology industry. You know, tech is in every facet of our lives. Hemp is another resource to become more sustainable, more profitable, you know, whatever it is. You're bringing how many thousands, tens and thousands of new products that are creating new jobs. And it's not something anymore that businesses should be holding arm distance away. If they're not thinking about it, we're behind the game.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So when we talk consumers, talk to me a little bit about what's the paradigm shift that needs to have on the consumer side, as far as understanding the plant or understanding the opportunity, and more on the medical side or health and wellness instead of, you know, the business or ag side. But
Right. Let's see. So for consumers, they have to recognize that this is a little bit of, if they're unfamiliar with cannabis and hemp products, they have to, educate themselves a little bit on what the potential impacts would be, and like the feeling. If we're talking about the consumption, but consumers of cannabis product are everyone. I mean, if you drink hemp milk, or if you have ever worn a hemp shirt, or
hemp lotion, hemp chapstick, hemp.
Yeah. So there are a lot of hemp products that are coming out, and I mean, speaking on a global level, there's far more hemp consumed around the world than in the U.S. at the moment. So people have been consuming hemp for a heck of a long time, and the safety of it, I think, is pretty well proven. But there are also, I mean, these consumers will also have access to all of the other elements that come out of the hemp plant, food, fuel, fiber, building material. And you said, and I'm so glad that you've brought this up about laboratory testing and the building material side, by the way. And then, but on the health and wellness side is really where there's a huge impact. And I think it's something that I want to address specifically. In the first stages of what we do in the company.
Well, it's what we need. It's, it's hard for me sitting in my role to refer products when I just don't know sometimes. You don't know how it's made. There's a lot of people that say, well, I brand and I'm the best because of brand identity and people relate to me. But really, I want to know, and I want to be able to educate consumers, why is one product at 50 milligrams better than another product at 150 milligrams?
Right.
Or why is one a cost of $100 a bottle and another is a cost for $25 a bottle, right? Yeah. And so there's a lot of pieces to that standardizing and the lab tests and or regulations, I think are valuable. And I think that they're necessary for consumers where everything else in the food and drug space are regulated. And so and understanding how challenging it is. I mean, this Delta 8 and Delta 10, Delta 11 that are now out are
concerning, I would say, but, interesting, but, also a little bit concerning, like when we start fetishizing again individual molecules, I think we start to kind of weaken the argument of the beauty of having plant-based medicine. I'm not saying, by the way, that incredible miracle drugs haven't come out of isolating molecules and people's lives have been saved. And there's a unique beauty and an interesting history to the history of American medicine. At the base of it really has always been kind of like our military history. And that's one of the reasons I feel to be kind of uniquely positioned in the conversation. I mean, ever since the founding of our country, we've been using military advances to improve health and wellness of human beings. And I mean, from General Washington inoculating his troops with smallpox to overcome that major military challenge, through all of the wars that we fought in our nation's history, the military advances have been at the very
Forefront.
the center of the whole conversation. You know, we've been really responsible for advancing medicine forever, and I think that we need to really continue that trajectory.
What an honor. And thank you so much. Because it really is. Like you said, it's an honor to be doing what we're doing. And I feel your passion. I can see it, and I appreciate it because I believe in it. I don't just know up here. I know that this plant is making a change, right?
Yeah.
What do you think the pandemic has done for our industry or for this? I mean, it unfolded, it showed a lot for me.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. I was just talking about that with my teammates this morning. And by the way, I'm so, you know, within my company, I'm surrounded by some really incredible teammates. But we were just talking about kind of like, how did it impact us? How did it impact everything about the whole conversation, right? For us, the impact was pretty much, I mean, we recognize that our geographic distribution of my company's key players was really important to the success of the company. And because we were speaking on a daily basis in meetings just like this for a very long time. And then we were also traveling significantly, which was a major strain on the company. You know, it's very expensive to get in the plane and go somewhere when you can actually have a conversation like this.
Crazy.
Yeah. And so I guess COVID for us at a business level really transitioned us towards more tech solutions, to operating really like multiple projects simultaneously with a really small group. And so it's been fascinating to watch how our company has kind of evolved from our input within to deal with the troubles of COVID.
Yeah.
On other sides, you know, we had huge wins in 2020. COVID was great for cannabis. You know, when you had major states saying that their cannabis industry was an essential industry. I mean, these are major, not just states, these are major economies, right? California, you know, my home state said, you know, we're not closing medical cannabis businesses or dispensaries because people need this, because this is their medicine. And so that was a big one. When the World Health Organization made a recommendation to the UN last year to remove cannabis from the list of most dangerous drugs, and they did, with the vote of the United States. I mean, it's a clear indication to me that, you know, this plant is never going to be more illegal than it was today. It's just going to continue to get more and more widely accepted. And so, you know, we see us as like kind of setting the stage for the future of the industry.
What do you think legalization will do for the industry?
Well, that's a really good question. Hold on, I still want to go back to COVID.
Okay, go.
COVID. Sorry, because I lost my train of thought for a moment. But in the COVID conversation, we look at it in terms of health and wellness. I think people really turned towards cannabis, one, to treat a number of issues, you know, that come with COVID, inflammation and all kinds of stuff, or to perhaps boost in the immune system, or just deal with the stress of being stuck like in the house all the time, right? And
I think those that weren't users, and I think those that weren't users, it opened up this like, oh, I need to research myself. What we've been told may not always be true, you know, or this. What I saw, especially in the UK, is they're very holistic anyway, right? And so we saw a lot of people go back to, wait, I've got to take care of myself. What is this endocannabinoid system? What is this option that everybody's talking about? I mean, I saw CBD sales skyrocket for a while.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's amazing. And you know, I've been watching this kind of global movement for such a long time now. You know, because my military career really was rooted in Europe And so, when I started researching hemp, I was really looking into also what were the traditional uses of cannabis all across Europe,
Right.
to include, France, where I was living at that one moment. I spoke of when I walked through their hemp fields, Slovenia, where I went to after that for 3.5 years, which was just incredible, beautiful hemp country and just a beautiful country in general. And all throughout the Balkan region of Europe. And I got to really see like the plant has been grown and been a traditional part of their medicine for a very long time. And I know that's the case on a global scale. And the fact that the United States exported really the prohibition of marijuana on a global scale is just inexcusable. I mean, it is really the impacts that it has had on a global scale are really mind-boggling. If you think about it, if we had been able to continue to cultivate this plant, and perhaps prohibition made us stronger. Perhaps it made us, kind of who we are. I mean, without this is my silver lining story, by the way, and there aren't many silver linings of cannabis prohibition, but without cannabis prohibition, I mean, think about it. I mean, we wouldn't have so much marijuana culture, right? Which really is an American export. Marijuana is an American export. The concept of marijuana, by prohibiting it, by really denigrating the plant and the people who using this term, we created this subculture that really flourished using marijuana, right? And all of our sorry.
No, you're good. I was saying it tied everybody together.
For sure, yeah. I mean, it's such a great bonding material, in so many ways.
It definitely brings the passion out in people.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
for sure.
I don't know very many people in this industry that have been in it for any period of time that are not passionate about more than what it does to us.
Right.
I mean, there is an astronaut. It is not a reefer madness. And you said earlier, everybody is smoking or consuming or using in some form or fashion. And it's funny when people say, well, I'm not a cannabis user, but they use hemp lotion or hemp. I mean, you are a cannabis user at that point. It's just, there's so many ways to consume, and this stigma is, I think it's unfolding. And I think the pandemic has done it for us.
Yeah, it certainly is. It certainly is. And, I think the veteran voice is a very powerful voice within the cannabis industry, and will continue to be so. And I hope to be parts of teams and groups and anyone kind of pushing forward that type of support towards veterans. I really am, committed to the veteran community to, show them the opportunity that's available within this space, both to treat issues and maladies that may have come up through service, or just treat getting old. Jesus Christ, this hurts.
It's so different than taking a vitamin.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's so many benefits that we're unaware of. We don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
It's something.
I think but with the veteran voice, that really is the trick. I'm really trying to push this thing to support veterans to have access to medical cannabis. And when I talk about that, I talk about veteran families, because really it is the family unit that suffers the most when you have a veteran that is potentially suffering from chronic pain or substance use, or any number of maladies that cannabis can really be effective in treating. It's the whole family that suffers then, and oftentimes it's really, it's fascinating how it impacts, and this is broadly, right? The veteran community is a broad spectrum of American society writ large. We are all over the place. And the veteran, though, oftentimes has to choose whether or not they can be employed, because for some reason, someone thought it was a great idea to start testing people's urine to determine whether or not they're a good person, and to determine, how they choose to medicate themselves to feel better. And I find that really unfortunate. And it impacts the veteran community specifically, though. Especially when they're getting their care from the Veterans Administration and from those hospitals and those pharmacies. This is
it's a real.
huge issue. It's a huge issue to me that is central, the core to kind of who I am.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me where you see that going. I've kind of heard talk, and I'm not up to date, but are they still drug testing for cannabis throughout there? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean throughout the military, they're broadly testing for cannabis. I'm certain. Could you imagine how enlistment would increase significantly if we told people that they could use cannabis to treat their issues? I
Well,
mean,
I'm going to be selfish for a minute. What about the people?
mm-hmm.
No, I was married to a Marine, and
Yeah.
I know the value, and I just look at what about those people and their ability to cope and manage and function, and their ability to complete jobs more efficiently. I mean, look at our efficiency, and I look at it on both our humans and our animals and our crops or our land.
Mm-hmm.
Consuming or growing hemp increases yields.
Yeah, absolutely. Being that market, creating the market, being that market, and encouraging people to be involved in this market, in this industry, right?
Yeah.
For all the right reasons. It gives politicians a great reason to say yes, right? To really, they have to envision what the future could hold with the undeniable impact of the re-legalization of cannabis and hemp.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, we can address so many of these societal issues that we spoke of, right? I mean, social justice is changing. We work very hard within my company to focus on bringing people of color, women, and veterans into the cannabis space. That's one area that we really try to impact that, because, social equity within the cannabis industry is just, it just hasn't happened yet. Really less than 1% of licenses held within this industry are held by anyone of color, and I think the number may be slightly higher if you include women, but variably this is a game changer. The rules of the game haven't been written yet within this industry because the rules haven't been set on the table by the federal government yet, right? And no one ever said, by the way, geez, we need to fix a problem, we should bring in the government. But yeah.
But I think it's the next phase. It's something that, it's like this push and pull, and the industry and the government, that we've got to work together. We have to find a way to work together, and I think that's one thing I've seen when we talk about this paradigm shift, is shifting from holding everything to our chest to being able to say, this works, this doesn't, this is why this doesn't, right? And I also think that talking about the good, bad, and the ugly, being real, so that we have realistic standards and realistic expectations, and we better protect our consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree. Like, consumer protection evolves. And again, all of those federal organizations that have to shift and gain an understanding of what this means to their particular, sometimes they're stovepiped, right? And so what it means to each of them. That's why, I knew the DOD. I know the DOD. I love and respect and was created by the DOD. And so, I really do think that it's a unique approach to put the DOD on the forward leading edge of cannabis research, right? First and foremost, we should want cannabis to be really effective as a medicine, right? It's a game changer. It's a paradigm shift. It's a revolution in medical affairs, and could lead to really revolution in military affairs.
Oh yeah.
Right? That's when you change the way you do something entirely because of a new technological advance, and the technological advances that could emit from the re-legalization of cannabis on the medical side and on the material side are just, unlimited. That's
hard to fathom. It really is hard to fathom, because when we talk about it, I hear people say, well, if it's so great, then why aren't we doing it?
Yeah.
And so where would you say right now our biggest hang up is, and what is a solution? What does the DOD or USDA or FDA need to hear from us, or what do you know we need to hear from the DOD so that we can bridge this gap?
Well, what needs to be shown by so many is courage, is to be a bold, kind of courageous leader that can be compassionate and visionary, and that recognize that perhaps we had a misunderstanding about cannabis and hemp and that entire product, and it deserves uh, deep introspection and focus of leadership and vision and an understanding of what this means on a local scale, on a national scale, on a global scale, and recognize that the conversation's not going away. So if as I see ourselves right now in like the midst of this inflection point in human history, while navigating this paradigm shift, it takes a host of teams. It takes a lot of people, and so I mean, I'll give you an example in a state that is just west of me. No, I won't name any names, but certain politicians at some point wanted to quash cannabis, medicinal cannabis, by putting in LGBTQ language in order to push it out. That's how badly they wanted this. And so we saw kind of two mindsets merge there. And it was really ugly. Thankfully, I don't think that's going to happen. Actually, it's not going to block medical cannabis language there. Thankfully, we're still certainly in the fight.
But I think those are real things. This is why we're facing it, right? When we talk about, well, why isn't it legal? There's a reason it wasn't available. We had a number of industries come together to create language that convinced all of us that it was the devil's lettuce, right? And I think it shows the power of the radio and the power of social media and the power that we now take back to re-educate, to get the information out there. But you really said something that hit with me, is it takes courage. This is hard. Educating the new industry is hard. Going up against what, we're ruffling feathers to make people pay attention. So I commend you, because you've done it and you've done a very, very good job. And so thank you very, very much for your time and for everything that you're doing.
Thank you. Well, I hope to, continue to ruffle feathers and push forward this thought process, because, I'm certainly committed to it. And it's really just a pleasure to be among the cannabis community at any rate, and to somehow try to be at least, I hope, a voice for the veteran community in this space. It's really been a privilege.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. We're already at an hour, but I would carry this on.
Sorry. You're gonna have to cut a lot of that out. Sorry, I get very about this plant. I really do. Everyone knows that.
I love it. Where do people, if someone wants to get in touch with you, how do people reach out? How do people get in touch?
It's at harvest360.co.
Okay.
Right. So we have a contact page there. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I try, I try to be active on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter, I think. Facebook, I'm starting to do a little bit more on Facebook, because it's now kind of transitioned to, not just it's just this meld of everything that I am, and we're talking business contacts to family, to, people within the industry, or I'm sorry, within the activist community. And it's been kind of interesting to watch it evolve. I don't necessarily want to be a public figure of any sort, but yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me most of the time.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate what you just said again, is there's very little divide in my business and personal when it comes to hemp, because it is intertwined in everything we do, from what we eat to wear to drive. It's becoming more and more of a passion, and it's weaving itself into all of these little facets. And if I have to do with it, it will be in every one of them.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I certainly think it will be a staple of our future. You know, so it's
I think it
pretty
needs to be. And it's not just. I had a really good conversation last night with a gentleman that is studying the carbon footprint of the hemp, and it's mind-boggling what we're doing to create the carbon, and how quickly we can reverse the carbon footprint. So he's really put some numbers together that are pretty powerful. So I'm really excited to start sharing those and get those out, because I think that, coupled with the health and wellness side and the sustainability side, we're talking, like, I think he said billion I don't know, gigaton, 8 gigatons per production facility for hemp or fiberglass cars, versus, I mean, it's saving that and production, so
wow,
massive changes. And so it's pretty cool. But
very
thank you
cool.
very much again for joining me.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you. I would love to stay in touch. Thank you so much. Thank you. We'll see you later.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.